AITA for hiding my wealth before my son's in-laws made a humiliating dinner offer? My daughter-in-law's parents offered me $700 a month to stay out of my own son's life. They said it in the middle of a dinner on the North Shore, looking at me as if I were a burden, because they believed I was a poor woman. What they did not know was that I had dressed that way on purpose that night. For years, I let Mark think I was just another office worker. A simple mother from a modest apartment, with simple clothes and a worn-out purse. I did not lie about working at a large company, but I always spoke of my position as if it were just another desk job. I never told him that between my salary, bonuses, and stocks, there were months when my income neared $45,000. I never told him I was the regional director of operations for a multinational manufacturing firm, or that I signed contracts worth tens of millions of dollars. I did not hide it out of shame. It had taken my whole life to get there. I did it because I did not want my son to grow up feeling entitled to anything. I wanted him to learn how to work, to take care of what was his, and to look at people without wondering how much they had. Besides, I did not know how to live any other way. After so many years of clipping coupons, comparing prices, and stretching every dollar, luxury felt like someone else's obligation. I could buy a sprawling condo downtown, but in my apartment I knew my neighbors. I could get a new car every year, but I preferred my reliable sedan that did not attract attention. I could wear designer brands, but a simple blouse served me just as well. Money had given me peace of mind, not a desire to become someone else. Mark was 35 when he called me on a Tuesday afternoon. "Mom, I need to ask you a favor." His voice sounded strange. It was not the voice of an excited son. It was the voice of someone worried about making a good impression. "Tell me, honey. Jessica's parents are in Chicago. They want to get to know you better. We're going to dinner on Saturday on the North Shore. I'd like you to come." I put down the documents I was reviewing. "What did you tell them about me?" There was a silence. "I told them you work in an office, that you live alone, that you're a simple woman, that you don't have much." There it was. That phrase. "You don't have much." As if I were an awkward explanation before being brought to the table. As if someone had to apologize for me before I could even sit down with them. "It's all right, Mark. I'll be there." I hung up and looked around my apartment. It was old, clean, quiet, with a simple living room, a small kitchen, and furniture bought with patience over years. It was not a poor place, it was my place, but if someone wanted to measure it with arrogant eyes, they could. That afternoon, I decided I was not going to introduce myself as the executive I was. I was going to present myself as the woman they expected to find. A simple single mother, easy to underestimate. I wanted to see what they would do when they thought I had nothing to offer them. On Saturday, I opened my closet and chose a gray dress I hardly ever wore anymore. It was loose, a little wrinkled. I put on some worn flats and a canvas bag I used for the farmer's market. It was not a tattered or exaggerated costume. It was just old clothes. I wore no jewelry or a watch. I tied my hair back carelessly and looked at myself in the mirror. I looked ordinary, tired, easy to ignore. That was what I needed. I requested a car through a rideshare app and chose the option to pay with cash. I lived in an older building in a quiet Chicago neighborhood, and the restaurant was in one of the affluent North Shore suburbs, one of those places with valet parking, tall wine glasses, and waiters who speak in low voices. It was Saturday night. The traffic had died down, but the long drive across the city gave me plenty of time to regret my decision. I was still hoping to be wrong. I wanted to arrive and find a kind family. I wanted Jessica to greet me without shame and for Mark not to look down, but when I walked into the restaurant, I knew that was not going to happen. Mark was standing by a table near the large windows. Dark suit, white shirt, polished shoes. He saw me and his face tensed up. He looked me up and down and swallowed hard. "Mom, you came." He did not sound happy. He sounded uncomfortable. "Of course, honey. I'm here." Jessica came over and gave me a quick kiss on the cheek. "Carol, so good to see you." Her eyes went to my dress, then my shoes, then my bag. She tried to smile, but it did not quite work. At the table sat her parents. Victoria Vance, elegant, with discreet but expensive jewelry, her hair pulled back and a cold gaze. Beside her, Walter Vance. Gray suit, large watch, the expression of a man used to everyone agreeing with him. "Jessica, is this?" Victoria asked without getting up. Yes, Mom. This is Carol, Mark's mother. Victoria extended her hand as if completing a formality. A pleasure, Carol. Walter did the same. Charmed. I sat in the chair at the end of the table. No one helped me get settled. Mark made a brief motion as if to stand, but Victoria started talking and he froze. The waiter brought the menus. They were heavy, with long names, French and Italian terms, and prices that were listed in small, elegant font. I opened mine slowly and let Victoria believe I needed help. Do you need me to explain anything? She asked. If it's not too much trouble. She sighed just loud enough for everyone to hear. We can order something simple for you. Something not too heavy or adventurous. No need to go overboard. Whatever you say, I replied. Victoria smiled, satisfied with my obedience. Walter nodded. Jessica looked down. Mark clutched the napkin on his lap. I just said thank you. Victoria began with comments about their trip, how the flight from New York had been tiring, how Chicago was still so busy, that the North Shore still had some good spots though the service was not what it used to be. Then she got to what really interested her. We're staying in a suite at the peninsula because Walter can't rest just anywhere. It's over $1,000 a night, but it's worth it. Walter checked his phone and complained that his bank had been flagging his card for security verification for everything since they landed. Victoria told him to deal with it later, that he was not going to fight with an app in the middle of dinner. Then she talked about the rental SUV, the stores on Michigan Avenue, some shoes for Jessica, a handbag that was not that expensive. She said it all while glancing at me, waiting for a reaction. I just nodded. How nice, was all I said. Sometimes a single phrase is enough to give someone permission to continue. We've always been careful with our money, she said. We work hard, we invest well. We have properties in the city, investments in a few funds, and a vacation home in the Hamptons. Walter has strong businesses and I oversee the portfolio, the rentals, the accounts. She raised her glass. And you, Carol, what exactly do you do? I work in an office, I replied, lowering my gaze. I handle paperwork, files, calls, a bit of everything. Victoria looked at Walter. Administrative work. That's fine, it's honorable. All jobs are dignified, are they not? Of course. The food arrived, large plates with small portions. Victoria cut her steak calmly. This cut is over $100. You pay for quality. One can't get used to just anything. Mark tried to talk about his job, but Victoria interrupted him. Mark, your mother lives alone. He went rigid. Yes, she has her apartment. He added. Small but comfortable. Victoria turned to me with rehearsed pity. It must be difficult, Carol. At your age, alone with a limited salary. Do you have enough for everything? I have enough for what's necessary. I manage. Oh, Carol, I truly admire women who get by however they can. Though of course as a mother one always wants to give their children more, a better life. But we all give what we can. There was the jab. She did not need to raise her voice. She was telling me I had not been enough for Mark. Jessica stared at her plate. Mark's jaw was tight. I offered a faint smile. Yes, we all give what we can. Victoria continued. We always made sure Jessica had the best. Private schools, trips, languages, connections. When she married Mark, we helped them with the down payment on their house. We also paid for the honeymoon, not because we have money to spare, but because that's our understanding of family. She looked at me intently. And were you able to help Mark with anything when they got married? Not much. I gave them a small gift. In reality, I had given them a nice set of dinnerware, bought without any fanfare, and a discreet bank transfer that Mark never knew the origin of because I passed it off as part of an old savings account. But at that table, I was not going to defend myself with bank statements. How lovely. It's the little things that count. It's not the amount, but the thought. I felt anger begin to settle inside me, not like fire but more like a decision. I had heard enough to understand what kind of woman I was facing. Still, I let her continue. They ordered wine. Victoria explained the bottle cost around $200 and came from a French vineyard. Do you drink wine, Carol? Only sometimes. And usually the cheap kind, I'm sure. Do not worry. There are tastes one acquires over the years with travel, with culture. Walter added, We've been to vineyards in Europe, Argentina, and Napa Valley. Jessica is starting to acquire a taste for it, too. Jessica has good taste, Victoria said. She inherited it from us. Jessica smiled without enthusiasm. Thanks, Mom. Then came dessert. Victoria ordered the most expensive one, with minimal decoration and gold flakes. These are the details you find in high-class places, she said. I ate in silence. When the waiter had cleared the plates and the table was free of nearby witnesses, Victoria set down her spoon and changed her tone. Carol, I think we need to talk about something now that we're all here. Mark looked up. Victoria, I do not think this is the time. Let me finish, Mark. This is for your own good, too. She looked at me with an almost motherly expression. Mark is our son-in-law, and we care for him very much. Jessica loves him and we respect that. But as parents, we want stability for our daughter. I understand you did the best you could with Mark, but now he's married. He has a life to look after. Stability? I asked. Yes. Economic and emotional. We have supported them, and we will continue to do so. But Mark should not be burdened with worries that are no longer his to bear. The word fell cleanly on the table. Burden. I was the burden. Jessica closed her eyes. Mark took a sharp breath. Victoria continued. I do not want this to sound harsh, Carol, but it's natural for him to worry about you if you're alone and on a limited income. He's a good son, but we do not want that worry to affect his marriage. I see. She smiled, thinking I had accepted my place. That's why Walter and I thought about helping you with a monthly stipend. A modest amount, $700, maybe $1,000, so you can live more comfortably. I remained silent. In return, we would only ask that you respect Mark and Jessica's space, that you do not seek them out so much that you do not depend on them, that you let them build their lives without interference. And have you discussed this with Mark? I asked. Victoria made a dismissive gesture with her hand. Mark is a noble person. Sometimes nobility needs direction. At that, Mark slammed his palm on the table. That's enough. Victoria frowned. We are speaking like adults. You have no right to say that to my mother. I raised my hand. Let it be, son. I took a sip of water. I wiped my lips with my napkin. When I spoke, I no longer used a small voice. That's an interesting offer, Victoria. I just want to understand it clearly. She blinked. Of course. $700 a month for me to disappear from my son's life. Her smile vanished. I would not put it like that. But that's what you're asking. Carol, we do not want you to misunderstand. We want to help. Like you helped with the house, right? How much did you give for the down payment? Victoria sat up straighter. $50,000. And the honeymoon? $20,000. A trip through Europe. Amazing. So you've invested about $70,000 in Mark and Jessica's life. When one loves their children, one does not keep count. You're right. But tell me something, Victoria. What did that money buy? Respect? Love? Or just permission to meddle? The table grew still in a different way. Walter intervened. I think you're misinterpreting things. I looked at him. Then explain it to me. You pitted me by mistake? You humiliated me out of politeness? You offered me money to stay away from my son as a gesture of affection. Walter did not answer. Mark muttered. Mom. Do not ask me to be silent, Mark. Not this time. I settled back in my chair. I was no longer faking timidity. Victoria, a moment ago you said you admired women who get ahead on their own. Let me ask you something. Have you ever built anything without a safety net, without connections, without already made money? She pressed her lips together. I have my own accomplishments. Which are? I manage investments, I oversee properties, I make business decisions. Businesses that Walter built, properties bought with capital that already existed, investments made on money that was already earned. Walter tensed. My wife works just as hard as I do. I do not doubt it. But there's a difference between managing what already exists and starting with nothing. Victoria looked down. When I was 23, I got pregnant with Mark, I said. The father disappeared. My family turned their back on me. I lived in a rented room and worked as an administrative assistant. I went back to work when Mark was just a baby. A neighbor watched him for me. I left early, came home late, did laundry, cooked, and studied after he fell asleep. I stared at my hands. I was not saying this for pity. I was saying it because there were things Mark deserved to hear from me, not from a family argument. There were months I paid the rent late. There were nights I had coffee and toast for dinner so he could have milk the next day. No one handed me this life. I built it out of exhaustion. Mark looked at me as if he were listening to a different person. I learned business software with borrowed books and online courses. I studied accounting, finance, logistics. I climbed slowly from assistant to coordinator, from coordinator to manager, from manager to director. It was not fast or pretty. It was work. I looked at Victoria. And now between my salary, bonuses, and stocks, there are months when my income is over $45,000. No one said anything. Mark's fork clattered onto his plate. Jessica's eyes widened. Walter frowned. Victoria sat motionless, as if she had not heard correctly. I oversee operations in several states. I manage enormous budgets. I sign contracts that you could not review without a team of lawyers, and I do it every day. Mark spoke almost in a whisper. Mom, why did you never tell me? Because I wanted you to grow up valuing hard work, not money. I wanted to raise a man, not an heir. And because a mother makes mistakes too. Mark, maybe I should have told you more. But I never hid my love for you. Jessica wiped away a tear. Then why do you live like this? Why do you not have a huge house, a luxury car? Because I do not need to prove anything. My apartment is enough for me, my life is enough for me. The rest is invested, saved, protected. Money gave me freedom, not an obligation to show off. I looked at Victoria again. That's why I came dressed like this. I wanted to see how you would treat me if you thought I had nothing. And I saw it very clearly. Victoria's face turned red. This is absurd. If it were true, Mark would know. No, because I chose for him not to know. Walter cleared his throat. That does not change the fact that you acted in bad faith. Bad faith? Bad faith was offering me $700 to stay away from my son. Bad faith was talking down to me all night as if I were less than you. I stood up. The entire table followed me with their eyes. Having money did not teach you how to treat anyone with respect, Victoria. That was made clear tonight. She stood up as well. You deceived us. No, I gave you an opportunity. You decided what to do with it. You provoked us, Victoria insisted. No, you sat across from a woman you thought was poor and treated her like an obstacle. I did not provoke that. Jessica was crying silently. Carol, I did not know. I know you did not know how much money I have, but you did know what your parents are like when they think someone is beneath them. And you stayed silent. Jessica lowered her head. I wanted to say something, but they're my parents. And Mark is my son. But loving someone does not mean you let them get away with everything. Mark approached me. Mom, forgive me. For not asking, for assuming, for letting it get to this point. I looked at him. I am not going to put all the blame on you. But I do want you to remember how it felt to stay silent. Next time you defend me sooner. Mark nodded, his eyes filled with tears. I promise. Victoria let out a dry laugh. What a convenient little scene. I looked at her without flinching. What was convenient was thinking I was poor. You were comfortable with that. The waiter approached cautiously. Will there be anything else? Walter said. The check. The wait was awkward. No one spoke. When the bill arrived, Walter placed a card on the folder without looking at it. The waiter left and returned a short time later. Excuse me, sir, the card was declined. Walter looked up. Try it again. It's been tried twice. It seems to be a security block from your bank. Walter took out his phone, opened his banking app and turned pale. It's asking for verification. The code is not arriving. Victoria looked away. For the first time all night, she did not look superior. She looked exposed. Mark started. Mom, I can pay. No. I took out my old wallet and placed my card on the table. The waiter took it. He returned minutes later. Thank you, ma'am, he said, after reading my last name on the card. The bill has been taken care of. I do not need a receipt. Victoria was not looking at anyone. I stood up and picked up my canvas bag. Thank you for choosing the place. And thank you for showing me who you are before it was too late. Victoria looked up, her face filled with contained rage. This is not over. Of course it's not. We're going to keep seeing each other at birthdays, at Christmas, at family gatherings. The difference is that now I know what you think of me, and you know that I know. Walter swallowed hard. Thanks for paying, he barely managed to say. You're welcome. That's what family is for, is it not? To help out when someone needs support. Sometimes it's $700 a month, and sometimes it's $1,000 for a single dinner. Walter tried to respond but could not find a sentence that would not sink him further. That was the part that hurt him the most. Not the bill, but having to accept help from the very woman they had tried to buy off. Mark closed his eyes. Jessica cried harder. I turned to her. Jessica, you're not responsible for how your parents are, but you are responsible for staying silent. That's what you need to change. She nodded. I'm sorry. Do not say it again. Do something different. I walked toward the exit. Before leaving, I looked at Victoria one last time. With all your travels, Victoria, I'm surprised you still have not learned how to speak to people with respect. She did not reply. Outside, the cool night air helped me breathe. Mark followed me out. Mom, are you okay? Yes. I do not even know where to begin with all of this. Start by talking to Jessica. Without yelling, without hiding anything. And set boundaries before her parents cross them again. Can you forgive me? I looked at him. I love you. That's not in question. But you also learned something about your silence tonight. Do not forget it. Mark looked down. I will not forget. The car I had called pulled up in front of us. Before I got in, he took my hand. Why did you not tell them the truth from the beginning? Because if I had, they would have been nice out of self-interest. I needed to know what they were like when they thought I could not give them anything. Mark nodded slowly. And now we know. Now we know. I got into the car. I rolled down the window. Go back to your wife. She also needs to decide who she wants to be. I love you, Mom. I love you too, son. The car moved through the streets of Chicago. It was late and there was not much traffic. I watched the lights through the window and felt tired. I did not feel victorious, just tired. I took out my phone. I had a message from Jessica. Carol, I'm so ashamed of what happened. I need to talk to you. I did not reply. Not tonight. I read the message twice and turned off the screen. Part of me wanted to answer her immediately because it also hurt me to see her suffer. But another part knew that an apology born of fear can sound sincere and still change nothing. I preferred to wait. The driver looked at me in the rearview mirror. Everything okay, ma'am? It was a difficult dinner. He nodded without prying. I thanked him silently. The fare was high because of the distance and the Saturday night demand. $40. I paid him with a $50 and told him to keep the change. He tried to refuse, but I insisted. I went up to my apartment. The living room was dark, just like always. I turned on the light, left my bag on a chair and took off my shoes. The gray dress went into the laundry basket. I put on old pajamas, made some tea and sat in silence. I did not need a huge home to feel secure. I did not need anyone to know how much I had. That night, for the first time in a long time, my silence no longer felt like a burden. My phone vibrated. It was Mark. Did you get home okay? I replied, yes, son. I'm home. He wrote, thank you for everything. I love you. I looked at the screen for a moment before answering. I love you too. Get some rest. On Sunday, I woke up early. I made coffee and sat by the window. Chicago was starting to move. Neighbors going out for coffee, cars starting, a dog barking down the street. From my window, I could see a normal city. Unaware of our dinner, life went on. Even though for us, something had broken the night before. Mark called before 9 a.m. I set my cup down on its saucer before answering. Mom, last night after you left, I talked with Jessica and then with her parents. Tell me, son. He was quiet for a few long seconds. I could hear him breathe. I told them I was ashamed of what they did, that I would not allow another dinner like that. Victoria tried to justify herself. She said she wanted to protect Jessica. Walter said you planned the whole thing to humiliate them. That's what they would say. Jessica confronted them. She told them they had been cruel and that she was also ashamed for having stayed quiet. I sat very still. That's important. Yes. Then we told them we're going to set some rules. We will not accept money with strings attached. We will not allow comments about your life, your house, or your job. And if they humiliate you again at a gathering, we're leaving. How did they react? Badly. Victoria said Jessica was ungrateful. Walter threatened to never put another dollar toward the house or any trips. But we did not back down this time. I took a slow breath. Then the night served a purpose. Yes, even though it hurt. Jessica cried a lot, Mom. Not because of the bill or the public embarrassment. She cried because she realized she's been normalizing that for years. That hurts too. It's not easy to look at yourself without making excuses. She asked if you were going to hate her. I do not hate her. But I need to see that she understands what she allowed to happen. Jessica wants to see you. She wants to apologize in person. Let her come when the urgency to be at peace has passed. Not today. Let her think about what she really wants to say. And you, Mark, you think too. It's not enough to get angry afterward. Next time you have to speak up in the moment. I know, Mom. You're right. I love you. I love you too. I hung up and went for a walk. I did not need a great revelation or anyone's advice. I just needed to move my body and let the anger subside. I bought a pastry, greeted a neighbor, and sat on a bench for a while. I watched families pass with grocery bags, children running, couples in silence. Ordinary people, people who did not seem to have to prove anything. I thought about Victoria and Walter in their suite with their credit cards, their properties, their carefully cruel phrases. They had many things, but that night they had shown a kind of poverty that money cannot fix. On Wednesday afternoon, Jessica knocked on my door. When I opened it, she was not wearing makeup or jewelry. Her hair was pulled back, and she wore jeans, a simple blouse, and her eyes were swollen. She looked less perfect but also more honest. Carol, may I come in? Come in. She sat in my living room and looked around without making any comments. I waited. I'm not here to make excuses, she said. I'm here to ask for your forgiveness. I nodded. I'm listening. I knew my parents could be like that. I did not know about your financial situation, but I knew how they treat people when they think they're not on their level. And I stayed quiet. Her voice broke. That was the worst part. Not what they said, but what I allowed. I did not interrupt her. My parents grew up with very little. They were genuinely afraid of being poor again, but over the years they turned that fear into contempt. I grew up hearing that there were people on our level and people who were not. I got used to obeying, to not contradicting them, to smiling when I was embarrassed. She wiped away a tear. But that night I saw them and I saw myself sitting there silent. I do not want to be that woman. For the first time, Jessica did not sound like someone trying to make a good impression. She sounded tired of herself. What are you going to do differently? I asked. Mark and I agreed not to accept any more help with conditions. We're going to review our housing situation. If anything still depends on my parents, we're going to cut it off, even if it takes us time. If they speak to you like that again, we will leave. If they use money to make our decisions for us again, we will tell them no. And I'm going to apologize to Mark too, because I put him in the middle of all this. And if your parents punish you with their silence? They will, she said. My mom already has. My dad sent me a message saying I had disappointed him. Before, I would have rushed to apologize even if I did not know for what. This time it hurt, but I did not run. That's an action, not just words. I want to learn how to not live my life based on my parents' approval. That's not learned in a day. She looked at me with shame. I also wanted to tell you something. When you said I was not responsible for how they are, but I was for my silence, it hurt. But it was true. It had to hurt. If it does not hurt, nothing changes. Jessica nodded. Do you think you can ever forgive me? I looked at her closely. I no longer saw the elegant woman from the dinner. I saw a scared young woman trying to escape a house where love always came with conditions. I do not need to decide that today. And neither do you. What I need to see is what you do from now on. I understand. If you have children one day, do not teach them to measure people by their clothes, their neighborhood, or their bank account. That will be enough for me. Jessica cried silently. I promise. And one more thing, I added. Do not use my story to fight with them. Do not tell them I'm the example and they're the mistake. That would just be trading one form of obedience for another. Do things because you understand them, not because I tell you to. Jessica nodded. That's what scares me the most. Thinking for myself. Then start with something small. The next time something makes you uncomfortable, say so in the moment, even if your voice shakes. We hugged. It was not a long or perfect hug. It was clumsy, but it was real. And sometimes what's real begins just like that, without pretty phrases. When she left, my apartment was quiet again. I sat by the window. Outside, the afternoon was settling over the city. The buildings glowed orange from the sun, and down on the street, life went on as usual. Mark texted me a little later. Jessica told me she went to see you. Thank you for seeing her. I replied. Take care of each other and take care of your boundaries. I left the phone on the table. Victoria and Walter did not change overnight. People like them rarely do. They remained hurt, furious, convinced that they were the ones who had been offended. For weeks, they sent cold messages, invitations with strings attached, and indirect comments through acquaintances. Mark and Jessica replied sparingly and always the same way, with respect but without yielding. That was new for them and for us, but the parents no longer held the same power. That was what mattered. I never pretended to be poor again either. There was no need. I had pretended for one night to confirm a truth, and the truth had come out more clearly than I expected. I still live in my apartment. I still wear simple clothes. I still buy what I need, not what impresses. The difference is that now Mark knows all of me. Not just the mother who raised him, not just the woman who cooked with whatever was in the fridge, but also the woman who built a life from the ground up without stepping on anyone. I did not leave that dinner happy. I left tired, with one less illusion and one more certainty. I was never again going to keep quiet just to make others comfortable. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough for me. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.